Hello, everybody. I'm Diana, and welcome to Build a Quilt. Build a Quilt is all about patchwork quilting made with a 5x7 hoop and your embroidery machine. It's not machine embroidery that looks like patchwork, which is another subject, another beautiful technique, but this is actual patchwork. Just like when I started quilting over 55 years ago, we did all of our quilting. We cut everything by hand, we measured everything by hand, and we sewed everything by hand. And then in the 70s and 80s, we moved into starting to use our sewing machine, which is probably what most quilters still do today. But now in the 21st century, we have another technique that we can use, and that's Build a Quilt. We use our machine, our embroidery machine, to help make our patchwork, and it takes away the need for a lot of real accuracy. It really helps if you have problems with your hands or your eyesight, because there's not as much real accuracy needed to be done with these eyes the way there is in other quilting methods. There's no squaring up at the end, that sort of thing. We have lots of videos here on the channel on how to do that, and I would suggest that you check out our mother of all quilt blocks, the half square triangle video. There's even a free pattern for that over at our website, which is, let me just bring that up for you, which is mybuildaquilt.com. Check that out if you like, and I will put that video at the end of this one so that you can watch it. But we have lots of videos, hundreds of videos here on the channel with this technique. But the rest of this video is all about doing fussy cutting, because it's okay to be fussy. In fact, I have my wrong banner on here. That's not the one. This is the one I want on here. It's good to be fussy. It's good to be fussy. It is. Fussy cutting helps to make your quilt truly beautiful and truly unique, because you can pick a fabric that has a design that meets someone's need if you're giving it as a gift, if they have a favorite hobby or something they like to do, gardening or volleyball or baseball or whatever that happens to be. You can fussy cut that fabric and put those blocks strategically within your quilt, and your quilt will be utterly unique and utterly personal for the person you're giving it to, or for yourself, because let's face it, quilters don't typically make quilts for themselves, but sometimes we should, for sure. So fussy cutting requires a template. And over at our website, again, mybuildaquilt.com, we have a template set where you get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7-inch templates. In there, they're paper, because you really don't need fancy acrylic templates for fussy cutting. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to use those, and an alternative just to using printer paper, which I do, but that's entirely up to you. It's super easy to do, and in the end, you can decide to make someone like Tula Pink's Queen of Hearts the centerpiece of a block by fussy cutting around her beautiful face. Or you might, if you have our Build a Quilt combo set, you might decide to take the diamond in a square, which is a great block for fussy cutting, and add the perfect little piece in the middle. And then that piece is on point, which gives it another special little look within your quilt. And within the video, I share lots of different fabrics and sizes of designs, and how you can look at how to fussy cut those designs in your own fabric. So I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching. And until next time, everybody, quilt life beautiful. I'm going to be doing that because fussy cutting to me is like the one easy thing that you can do in your quilts that makes your quilts extraordinarily special, because you can give them a theme by choosing like a very specific pattern from a fabric, or by picking a very specific color with a background design in it. anything like that. And that will make your quilt exceptionally special. So if you are making this easiest quilt along ever, and you are going to give it to, say, a tween in your family, maybe you have a granddaughter or a niece or a daughter that's 12, 13 years old, and you wanted to make her a throw quilt so she can have it in her bedroom, maybe take it when she hangs out with her bestie at her house at night and stuff like that, then you could make these 5-inch finished squares something special. Maybe she plays volleyball. Maybe she's in gymnastics. Maybe she's a ballerina. Maybe she's like already into gardening and stuff like that. You could choose a fabric with a specific theme that would really work for her, and she would love it. And if you're making this for, say, a college student, finding a fabric or t-shirts with their college emblem on them are perfect for fussy cutting, because that really makes that quilt so personal to them. That's where we get into the idea of we put our love into our quilts, because the person receiving that quilt is going to know that you went above and beyond for creating that quilt for them. Let's see. Quilt says, I have 4 blocks finished and the sashing. Oh gosh, Sue, you're almost done. Good for you. That's awesome. All right, so let's flip over the camera. Now I am going to put something down, and I want you to tell me if you can read it. Can you read that? Or is it upside down? Somebody let me know in the comments really quickly. Can you read this, or is it upside down? Oh, wait a second. I always have to make sure that I have put this camera in the right mode, and it's I am always back. I think because I'm a lefty, I always get it backwards. Someone can please let me know in the comments real quick. Can you read this, or is it upside down? It won't make a huge difference, but it will make a little bit of it. Yes, you can read. Good. Thank you, Sue. That's all I needed to know. Alrighty. So I'm going to show you something that was fussy cut. If you have, and if you're doing the easiest quilt along ever, you have this because you have to have it to make it, our basic combo block set. We're using the square right now, but you can see you also get the quarter square, the half square, the split rail, the flying geese unit, and you get the diamond in a square. This is the block I use probably 9 times out of 10 when I want to fussy cut something, because it allows me to cut my fabric, make some part of it the main theme, and then give it a bit of a border. Now, with the quilt we're doing now, we're going to do that with just a single square. We're not doing the diamond in a square, but I wanted to show you this. So that is a regular diamond in a square. This is the perfect area to highlight something from fabric. Now, when I share with you how you're going to use the template set, I'll come back to this and show you how you do it if you want to use your diamond in a square. So let me get the template set here, the pieces that I have. So in the end, we're going to end up with a piece like this. Our finished blocks for our easiest quilt are 5-inch finished, okay? So when you go to your template set, you're going to pull the one for the 5-inch finished. So let me get out all my little doodads here. Okay, so this is the template. It'll tell you at the top, 5-inch fussy cut template. This is for the 5-inch finish block. However, this piece in here is not 5 by 5. It's 4.5 by 4.5. Why? Good question. That's because, remember, the very edge of our finished block is going to be 5 inches. So right here at this line, from here to here is 5 inches. If I do my fussy cut all the way out to that line, when I go to sew my blocks together, part of it's going to get caught up in the seam. We don't want that. So we give ourselves a little bit of space. So this is 4.5 inches in here. it is the size window you want to use for your 5-inch finish. Now, if you have questions while I'm going along, please put them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them as we go. There's no bad questions, and I will almost bet money that someone else has that question too, and they want to know it. All right, so don't be, thinking your question isn't a good one. So for this particular easiest quilt along, you want to choose your 5-inch fussy cut template. Okay. And you're going to have 4.5 by 4.5 inch window to use. Set that aside. Now, in order to get this finished piece that ends up being 7 by 7, you're going to do this. Remember that with Build a Quilt, you're told to cut your fabric at a specific size so that when it's finished, you have plenty of fabric to trim off and have that 1/4 inch seam allowance, right? Super easy to do. So what I've done here is I want my final template to be 7 by 7. I want it to be the size of my cut fabric that I cut when I start prepping my fabric. So since this is 4.5 inches, I need to add 1.25 inches to all 4 sides. And how I do that is super simple. I just take my ruler that has it needs to have 1/4 inch marks. I lay my 1.25 inch mark on my outside line, and I draw a line. And I do that around all 4 sides of this square. Then I can come in here and I can cut all of this out, and I end up with a 7 by 7 piece with this window still in the middle. Okay, so now when I take my fabric, we're just going to say, here is my 7-inch piece of fabric. Now this isn't a perfect square. I kind of made a little goof, but it is a minimum of 7 by 7. It's really close. I just have a little mess up here. But when I lay this down, it fits over that cut piece of fabric perfectly, right? So what I want to do then is I want to fold this with the square on the outside in half. Just give it a little crease. It's not a big deal. And then you're going to take your non-fabric scissors, right? We don't want to use our fabric scissors. I have this old little pair of Fiskars. And you want to come in here and you want to make a little cut, okay? Just right in the center there. And then you want to cut from the inside out to the line all the way around. You don't want to come from the outside into the line because it's going to make your square wibbly and you won't get as good at accuracy. So once I've cut that little piece, I just come in here, I cut out to a line. I'm a lefty, remember, and then I just come around and I'm going to cut out this inner piece all the way around all 4 sides. And then I end up with my perfect template. This is my size for my cut piece of fabric, and this is the window that I have for fussy cutting. And I can use every little bit of that for my fussy cutting. I don't have to say, oh, I need to back it off here or back it off there, because we've accounted for all of that. Everybody doing okay? Any questions at all? I'm going to take a sip of my coffee here. Still, my voice is still coming and going a little bit sometimes, so I don't want to lose it in the middle of all this. So any questions? If you have questions, please ask them and I will answer them immediately for you. I don't want you to have to think about them and then come back later. I mean, you can ask them at any time, obviously, but it always works best if you ask when you have them. So that is your template. Now, I've just cut mine out of white copy paper, and really, it works fine. The other thing you could do is get yourself some cardstock like from a craft store like Michael's or something like that, and use that. That'll be a little bit heavier. It might last a little bit better, but go ahead and do that with each and every template in the set. Now, I told you originally that you'd come out an inch and a quarter. Well, that gives you a 7-inch. What will happen is with each size, this number will get a little bit bigger, because when you use a 4-inch, your cut size fabric is only 6 inches. Okay, so this would be slightly smaller out here on the side. So you'll just do that. You'll just take this inner number. You'll take the finish size. So if it's a 6-inch finish, you would minus your, you would have, I think you have 5.5, I think is what the center is. And then you would minus that, and then you would divide that by 4 to get how much to take off your side. So simple, easy, add, subtract, multiply, divide type of math. All right, so that's how easy it is to prepare your templates. Make yourself a set and then put them away in a drawer so that you have them whenever you want to fussy cut. You're not going to use these to cut with necessarily. If you do, and you accidentally sliver off a piece of the paper, that's okay. You've only used copy paper or cardstock. You can always make yourself another one. I actually like making these in black, because then it blocks out everything else and you really see what's in that window. But you could, like I've done here, you can use copy paper. So let's bring back in this piece of fabric right here. I've already cut this to a 7-inch square. So what I obviously am going to want to fussy cut is this woman, right? This queen. This is the Queen of Hearts. This is from a Tula Pinks Alice in Wonderland collection. And I used several Tula pieces in our examples and some others, because since she has figures in different sizes, it's easy for you to see what I'm talking about. So obviously I'm going to want to use her. However, if I hadn't cut this yet, what I would do beforehand is I would decide, do I want this so that I get her crown in this piece? If I do, I need to make sure and cut my 7 inches so that the crown will fit in there. But without the crown in there, the way it is right now, I'm going to get a little bit of the crown, but I'm going to get her dress. I'm going to get this flouncy ruffle of her collar. I'm going to get the most of her. And typically with fussy cutting, unless you're going to be very specific about a specific flower, a specific animal, something like that, you typically want to, with a large design like this, you want to get the most of it. But decide how you want it. So now this is already cut to 7 inches. This is the piece then. Once let's say this is our piece that we're going to, this is our stabilizer. Gosh, I could not think for a minute there what that was called. I had here it is. It's because I was trying to do 2 things at once. I was trying to think of where my stabilizer was. Let's just say, here's our stabilizer. It's in our hoop. I'm going to lay this down, because pretend that's the area that you're going to put it in. Then I would lay my fabric down, and I can feel it right here. I can know what I'm going to be. So I'm going to cut off some of her crown. I don't really want all of her crown. I don't necessarily want to think of her as a queen. I just want this face in there, but I want more of this. So I can feel the upper edge of that and the lower edge, or the upper and the lower. And now I know what I have in there. And then I just continue to make my block as normal. Okay. So very easy with something like that, but let's go ahead and look at some other examples. as we move on. All right, so this is another large print, these flowers. This is a fabric, gosh, I've had this probably for 6 or 7 years. This was sent to me from a friend in the UK. Now, there's something interesting about this fabric, and this is something that you'll want to look at when you look at your fabrics for fussy cutting. It has a big, I didn't iron this, but this has this big, beautiful spray of roses, and it has a little spray of roses. So I get to decide here. Here's the little, and here's the big. I get to decide now, do I want my fussy cut piece to be, hang on, I just dropped my pen on me. Gosh. Do I want my fussy cut piece to be here? Let me get this in the window so you can see it. There we go. Do I want to do the small piece and center that up there? Or do I want to do this big piece? And this is the nice thing. With this 5-inch block, you're going to be able to use some bigger pieces, some bigger designs in here if you fussy cut them. And because you've got more space in here. If you were using a smaller template, you might have to decide down to the single flower which one you want to fussy cut. And that's okay. We're going to talk about that some more too. So when you get your fabric, look at it and say, okay, I could fussy cut that, or I could fussy cut that. You're never going to be able to fussy cut all of that, but you can make a decision there. If you want to fussy cut a smaller piece with a smaller template, then you might want to choose the smaller bunch over the bigger bunch. It kind of depends on the template size you're using and what you think is going to look nice for your particular quilt. All righty, so let's set this one aside and let's bring in this print. So this is a rather small print for fussy cutting. So like if you're going to use a 3-inch template or something like that, this would be great. But we have our cats here. We have this theme of animals going tonight, don't we? So we have our cats here, and they're kind of spread out. So let's put our template down. Well, I could kind of get 3 of them in there. But what do you think that would look like in a quilt? Would you want them looking in all different directions? You may. That's entirely up to you. But truly, for this particular fabric, because these are spread so far apart, it's probably best that you fussy cut the cat right in the middle. Now, you might get some of the other in here. To be honest, this fabric, because of the way these cats are laid out, I would not use it with this big template. I would use it with a smaller template. So I could get the cat, I could get the sunburst around him. I might even do it so that I could get the stars and the moon and the planets around him in my window. But because I'm still going to get some of another cat here and a little bit here, I probably wouldn't use this particular fabric with this size template. But that's really up to you. It's not going to make a huge deal. It's not going to make your quilt ugly. But because fussy cutting is meant to highlight something specific, you might not want the eye drawn to these other parts of the cats. You might want it drawn directly to that cat right there. So in this case, for this particular fabric, I might use it specifically for a smaller template. Now, I have another small, same size. These cats and these teacups are basically the exact same size. However, there is a difference here. Let me undo this. With this one, these cups are right next to each other. There's really, I don't consider this to have space between them. So when I kind of look at this, if I look at that cup, it kind of has a ring of cups around it. So when I lay this down, boy, I can get a lot of cups in that window. Sorry, guys. There we go. I can get a lot of cups in that window. So if I use this fabric, and I'm going to tell you, I may be using this fabric because I happen to have it in this color and this color and this color. I had this whole collection, and this print came in all three colorways. I could mix and match these throughout my quilt that we're making, our easiest quilt along. I could mix and match them. And because I mix and match them, they're going to go with all these other scrappy colors that we're using. And because these are teacups, I could definitely do this as a wall quilt for my kitchen, dining room area. I could give it to someone who's really into coffee or tea, like my friends over in the UK love their tea. I could send this to one of them, and they would probably appreciate that with the heart on the teacups. But this sized print works just fine if it fills in that whole area, and you're just barely cutting off any here at this side. So that's not a problem like it would be with the cat. That looks like it's meant to be. That would be a great singular square block to put in a quilt from this type of fabric. So I wanted to show you what the difference is when you work with a small print and a large template, how it can make a difference based on how separated your print, your designs are in that print. All right, so let's set that one aside. Now, I want to bring in a couple of large prints. This is actually a holiday fabric, but when I saw it, I thought this is a great way to talk about these large prints. Let me check over here to see if we have any questions. What would the teacups look like if it was on point? Well, if you were going to do it with this type of a thing, this would put your teacups on point. This white fabric, I'm trying to look through this white fabric. You could definitely get 2 or 3 of the teacups within this piece. And we're going to talk about how to decide. Whoops, hang on. Don't go anywhere, guys. I've lost a camera. Give me just a second. There we go. Sorry about that. There we go. Sorry about that, everybody. There we go. The wind might be playing havoc tonight. Okay, so if I did these teacups in this diamond in a square, it would put them on point, and I could decide to put one in the center, or I could probably get a couple of them in this larger piece. And I'm going to show you how to calculate that here in just a moment. So hang on to your question just a little bit more, Ruth, and we'll go into that a little bit more detail because that's a great question. So in this one, this is another large print, but let's look at it for a second. These branches out in here in the greenery, I don't really necessarily need those in my fussy cut, but this size is large enough that I can certainly get all of the flowers. That's probably what you want to highlight if you were to fussy cut that fabric. Now, if you wanted to have the pine cone and the greenery, you could decide to fussy cut it like that. You get a little bit of flower, you'd get the one big flower, but you'd also get this. And if that made sense for your pattern, for your quilt, then do it for sure. And it will look great. And here's the thing, if I slide this over a little bit, I can cut just a little bit of that flower at the top and still get this all in at the bottom if I want to. But what I want to make the point of is don't be afraid to fussy cut your piece off center. It might make sense for your particular piece. I've done this quite often with a square. I decide to put one fussy cut in this corner, then I'll put another one in this corner, and it really gives your quilt a lot of movement. So when you have a large piece like this, really take your template and move it around and kind of see really where you want it, where you want that fussy cut to be. But if you want it to be right dead in the center and you want all of the flowers, that will work out perfectly for you. Okay. Alrighty, so now I've got a couple more samples to show you. Actually, just two really quick ones, and then we're going to talk about this other one. Do you guys mind if we go 5 minutes over tonight? Let me know. If that's a problem, I'll try not to, but we might need about 5 minutes. All right, so in this one, we have a squirrel on a branch here, and then we have this squirrel up here. So we have one sitting on a branch and one running off the branch. So I can decide, and this is another one I can decide, do I want my little squirrelo friend sitting right there? That's cute. I like that. I really like that. If you have a nature lover, perfect. Put little squirrels in your quilt. Or, so this one shows him, as I'm looking at it, he's running down the branch. But as you guys are looking at it, let me flip him around so that you guys can see him running down the branch. See him like that? He's running down the branch. And you get all the little acorns in there. So again, this is kind of a medium-sized pattern, but it gives you multiple places where you can fussy cut. And then just one more large one. And I think this one, again, we have another cat. This fabric I got to use for my niece, a quilt for my niece. She loves cats. And so this little guy fits in there perfectly. He's framed. He's absolutely gorgeous in there. However, this fabric has another cat in it. This one right here. Let's see. There, this one right here, who is different from the other one. I could also put that one in there, so I can do them both. And so I could, his tail's coming off a little bit onto that fold. I could scoot this over and get his whole tail in there too. So this is kind of a large pattern, but something like that is perfect for fussy cutting. So when you look at your fabrics, just really look at what the themes are and pick out the pieces that you think will go good with the theme of your quilt. Now let's just really quickly, let's finish talking about one. For those of you that want to try doing it with your diamond and a square from the set, you would use your 5-inch finished diamond and a square that comes in your Build a Quilt combo set. When you measure in here, this whole piece is 5-inch finished, but this is not. Right? So you need to measure this. Just take your ruler. 1, 2, 3. You're going to get, this is 3.5 inches. So when you create a template, you need to make sure that your square, you kind of set it like that. But you need to make sure this center piece is no more than 3.5 inches. And so again, now for something like this, if we bring back our original cat face here on this one, I know you can't see it very well through there, but that cat face fits in there perfectly. So this is a really good pattern for fussy cutting a diamond in a square. To be honest, this one that I did here, this is a little bit big, but I was able to get the entire rose in there. I cut off some of my leaves, but I really wanted that rose in there, and it did end up fitting, but it took up most of the space. Something like this would look probably better, or a couple of these teacups in that center would look probably better than this, but I did this as a sample because I wanted to see what that rose would look like. All right, any other questions about fussy cutting? Your fabrics. So next week, I will make sure that you know exactly how many